All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. I am just beginning a series of video presentations I'm creating for the Rankin Technical College ASP.NET 1111 or .NET Framework with Web Databases class. I've decided that rather than starting with our book, I'm going to first go through this 12-lesson thing from DotNetOdyessy.com called ASP.NET MVC free course. So far all I've done is an overview of what I'm going to go over and the first half of Chapter 1. So I'm going to continue on with Chapter 1 right now. So we left off right here, how ASP.NET MVC works. The first thing for you to realize when we start to talk about this is MVC, or Model View Controller, is not unique to ASP, or Active Server Pages, .NET. You can use MVC with a lot of different products. All right? As it says here, ASP.NET MVC follows the Model View Controller architectural pattern, which promotes this separation of concerns we mentioned earlier. The model, notice, the model is code. It's a set of classes that define your business domain. Typically, the model will be associated with some kind of data store, often a database, regardless of the type. The view is what the end user sees. As it says there, the view defines the user interface of the application. All right? It's the end product, you could say. And the controller is kind of the traffic cop. Okay? The author says here, the controller handles the user requests as they come in and orchestrates the application by communicating or sending whatever has to be sent, okay, to either the model or to the view. All right. Now, it says, for the sake of explaining the request flow, we'll assume that Google Search is built using ASP.MVC. All right. And let's not even do this. We're going to go over this in just a couple minutes, but first, let's go over this. This is a very high-level view of Model View Controller. You know, and literally, I just grabbed it from Google Images. Again, this is not unique to ASP.NET, and I want you to realize that. All right, that's the first thing. Okay? The second thing is, I really like this picture because I think it exemplifies what really MVC is. What do I mean? Well, here you're the user. Let's take them by the numbers, okay? In step 1, you either key in something into your browser, like a URL request. For instance, if I was going to go to the home page of Rankin Technical College where I work, I could either go to rankin.edu or to https://rankin.edu. Either way, I'd be sending a request that would be answered by a controller. Again, the controller's the traffic cop. I kind of liken a controller to one of two things. First, a controller in many ways is like a conductor for an orchestra. Typically, the conductor does not play an instrument. Rather, the job that she or he has is to make sure that the correct instruments come in at the time they're supposed to come in, or get louder, or get softer, or whatever. So they don't do the actual work, they control how the actual work is done. Another example that I've given as far as what a controller is to say that a controller in many ways is like a supervisor. Many years ago, I worked for a gentleman at a technical college, a different one that I worked for in Wisconsin. And to be honest with you, there was a part of me that always wondered, what does Larry do? All right? And it's not that he didn't do anything, I just didn't know what he did. But then once in the middle of a semester, Larry took a vacation, all right, and literally went out of the country. I think he went to Italy. And during that time, a lot of things unraveled. And when they did, I realized what he did. Because, a good supervisor oftentimes doesn't do the work, but has the innate ability to assign the work to the right person or persons to get it done. So the request comes in, the controller then contacts the model. The model typically will go and ask for information from a data store. It says database here, and it usually is. Notice how the arrows go. User, controller, model, database, then back to model, back to the controller. All right, after the controller has received the information that it needs from the model, it has to deliver it over to the view so that that information can be sent back again to the end user. You'll notice if you look in here, there is direct communication between the controller and the view, okay, and between the controller and the model. There is no direct communication between the model and the view, and there should never be. Again, the controller should act like a traffic cop, a coordinator. The model should be in charge of the data, and the view should be what the end user sees. Now that's it in a nutshell, all right? And this is their picture, so I'm going to leave it up here, but my goal is not to confuse you at all. So you can take a look at it. It's a little bit more in depth than what I just showed you. All right? So it says, here are the sequence of steps that are shown in this picture right here. All right? So number one, the user types in the URL. Number two, the request reaches the web server, and it's forwarded to the routing engine of ASP.NET MVC. The routing engine is kind of the precursor because it figures out in a very complex application, you could very well have several controllers. So it figures out what controller to call to handle the request that comes in. All right. So again, it selects the correct controller. The controller talks, again, I like to say data store rather than database. It normally is a database, but it could conceivably be something else that was not a database. All right. Once the controller receives the data back from the model, okay, it's got to call the relevant view to show that data to the user. All right. And the requested resource then will be sent back from the view in the form of HTML to the end user. Okay? And I'm not sure why they have that picture there, but they do. All right, and as the author says, please note, there are a lot of things happening between the time the request is received, the HTTP request is received, and the time the HTTP response is sent back to the user. All right, so the picture that they showed there was very high level. That doesn't mean that it showed everything in detail. As mentioned, Chapter 1 here is kind of the big 35,000 foot view, so you're looking at it from way up high. It says there are some other details that have intentionally been left out. Okay? So, in the next chapter that we go through, because we're done with this one. So, when we get to the next chapter, we build our first ASP.NET MVC or Model View Controller application. Just two quick things and then I'm finished. First is notice they're using 2013 Express for the web. I'm going to be using Visual Studio 2017. All right, because this article is a couple years old. That's the first thing. The second thing is I'm going to be throwing a lot of stuff at you if it doesn't totally make sense. My hope is that in the first week of class, we're going to go over this and basically build what's in here as a class. As always, that will be taped as well. All right? So I'll be back then with the beginning of Part 2, your first ASP.NET MVC application, shortly.